My boyfriend showed up to my house randomly one day. I had just woken up and I got ready so fast in my room. Mom told him that he could wait in the living room. She ended up jumping in the shower. I went outside to the living room and we ended up going to his house. And I was there. My mom called me. She said that there was $350 on the table and that one $50 bill was missing. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, but I had to find out the truth. So I told him to take me to Jack in the Box. We went through the drive-thru. I was so mad, but I had to keep it together. I knew that he only paid with 20s. He never paid with 50s. I ordered my food and I was waiting to see what bill he pulled out. And guess what, guys? It was a $50 bill. Then I looked at him and told him, don't pay with my mom's money. I grabbed my purse, pulled out a 20, and told him, pay with my money. His eyes just popped open. He knew he got caught. After I found out that he stole from my mom, I told him to pay with my money, right? And he just got very defensive. He started telling me that what was I talking about? He tried to play it dumb. And I told him, you know what I'm talking about. And he said that he didn't know. So I explained to him that $50 were missing. And he was just like, I would never do something like that. How could he say that? If you guys really need the money, then here you go. And he ended up handing me the money. And I was like, dude, just say the truth. Say that it was you. And he was just like, no, keep the money. And I kept that because that's my mom's money. She was supposed to pay one of her bills with that. And the reason why I didn't tell him on the spot when my mom called me was because I didn't want to accuse him and then him say that he didn't do it. I'd rather just see it myself and confirm it. Thanks to the drive-thru at Jack in the Box, I knew that this man was a thief and a liar.
Storytime about how my grandmother predicted that I would get kidnapped when I was 14 years old. Disclaimer, this is not my story time, it's sending me on Instagram. My grandmother and I have always had a very close relationship. We're Mexican and my grandmother believes in ghosts and legends. In the town that we lived in, there was always a legend about girls who got kidnapped. When I turned 7 years old, my grandmother told me that I would be kidnapped when I was 14 years old. My parents and I didn't believe her. My grandmother never let me out of her sight after that. Even if I was going to go to the park and play, she would always come with me. It wasn't until I turned 14 years old that it happened. I was walking home from school and it was the first time that I was walking home by myself. Somebody was always there to pick me up, but this time no one was there. The crazy thing is that my grandmother got confused on the day. So my parents didn't think that they needed to go pick me up because they thought my grandma would. As I turned a corner, a man snatched me up and put me in his car. And he had the scariest mask on. He looked like the devil. My grandmother instantly knew that something had happened to me. She ran over to my school, but I wasn't there anymore. For 2 hours, the man drove me around in his car looking for a perfect spot. Whenever I would ask him where he was taking me, all he would say was, I'm looking for privacy. When he first took me, he tied my hands behind my back. He threw me in the back of the car, and every now and then he would turn around and grab at my clothes. He was trying to rip the clothes off of me. But every time he would try to grab my clothes, I would bite him really hard. I made him bleed several times, but this only made him angrier. We finally stopped in a supermarket parking lot. That's when he told me to stay quiet and he left the car. But I was more afraid of what he would do with me if I stayed than if I left. I managed to get out of the car without him seeing me. I ran for a minute before I heard him screaming behind me. Reached a highway and a woman stopped her car to help me. She took me back to my parents' house and that's when I found out my grandmother had had a heart attack. She knew that I was kidnapped and my parents went crazy. They took me to the hospital, but I was actually okay. I went into therapy for years after that. Legend has it the man is still kidnapping girls. I drive my car every single night in the same route that he drove me. What should I do when I find him?
Am I the asshole for getting mad about my mom marrying my fiance's dad?
What?
I, 24 female, and my fiance, 24 male, have been together since our sophomore year of college, so around 5 years now. For context, my mom had an affair with a coworker when I was 16, leading to my parents' divorce. She has been single ever since. Sadly, my fiance's mom passed 2 years ago due to cancer, and his dad has been single since. My fiance proposed last year, but our wedding was delayed due to COVID. 3 months ago, in January 2021, we decided it was time to have our families meet for the first time to discuss our upcoming wedding. This went well. This morning, out of the blue, my mom called me and announced that she had eloped. I was shocked as she had not been dating anyone to my knowledge. Upon questioning, it turns out that she and my fiance's dad had been dating in secret since that meeting in January and had married in secret yesterday, making my fiance my stepbrother.
My husband and I have a 3-year-old son together, and there has never been any doubt that my husband is the father. Last week, he came to me and said for the last few months he had been plagued with this anxiety that our son is not his. They don't look identical, but they definitely share similar features, and I see my husband whenever I look at my son. I was obviously blindsided by this and asked him to explain why he thought that he wasn't the father, and he couldn't really provide an answer other than a gut feeling. He asked me for a paternity test and I said hell no. He said he could just do it without my permission, and I told him if he did that, I would never forgive him. My husband does not have a history of anxiety, but he did lose his job back at the start of the pandemic. I thought he was just stressed out, and I told him if he went to therapy and maybe started taking some anti-anxiety meds that I would consider getting the paternity test. He got upset and said that once he got the results of the test back, he wouldn't be anxious anymore. He again threatened to just get the test without my permission, and I told him that this would end our relationship. My friends and family are divided over this. Some think I should just take the test, and others are saying he's being insane and that if I cave to this, there's just going to be something else. I think there's something more serious going on here, and I need some neutral perspective. So, what would you guys do?
4 years ago, I broke up with my boyfriend Dan, but I decided not to tell him. Dan had been coming around to my apartment and my work even though I repeatedly told him I was not interested. I had been planning to move to get away from him and I didn't want him to have an excuse to be in my life. So when I moved away, I didn't tell him I was pregnant and I didn't put his name on the birth certificate. Last year when my daughter was 2, I got married and my husband adopted her. Dan and my sister were still friends in high school, and since Dan still lives in my hometown, they occasionally catch up. A week ago, Dan called me and said that he found out through my sister that I'd been pregnant not long after we broke up. He was furious that I had never told him and that the baby might be his and accused me of keeping him away from his daughter. I told my husband and he's furious that I never told him about my daughter's father. He was always under the impression that her father hadn't wanted to be in the picture, and he's been cold to me ever since I told him. I do not ever want Dan around my daughter, and I think I was justified in my decision to protect her from him. But Dan keeps calling and asking to see his daughter, and my husband says I betrayed both him and Dan by lying about this.
Am I the asshole for not wanting to be part of my stepmother's family tradition with my step and half-sister? Disclaimer, this is not my story. So my stepmother has a tradition her family does regarding weddings where all my sisters wear the same piece from a family member's wedding outfit. Typically, it's something from your mother or grandmother's wedding. My stepmother and all her sisters wore their mother's veil. My stepmother's nieces by her older sister all wore their mother's wedding pearls. I'm engaged. My stepmother sat me and my stepsister and half-sister down to discuss what our item would be. I told her I was planning to wear something of my mom's and that would be all the extras I would go with. She told me it was an important tradition to continue. I told her it was nice of her to think of me, but it wasn't my tradition. She then said the simple answer would be let them wear the necklace when their wedding day comes around. They thought that was a great idea and said if it was a piece they were thinking it was the most beautiful thing they'd ever seen and they'd love to wear it. I said that wasn't going to happen, that it was a piece of my mom I could have during my wedding since I can't have her here. Me not wanting to do this tradition has caused some arguing. My step and half-sister were upset I wouldn't do it with them. My stepmother is also upset that I don't want to embrace the tradition from her family. The tradition has no interest in me at all, and I would never share something of my mom's with my step or half-sister. My dad tried to talk me into it. He told me it would mean so much and would I not find it like to feel like they were just my mom and sisters instead of having step and half in front of their titles. I told him no, that I have a mom and her being dead doesn't change that or mean that I need to see someone else as my mom too. My stepmother told me that she has always tried to make me a true part of her family, a true daughter, and that I'm an asshole for rejecting that as an adult when it doesn't just hurt her, but my sisters as well. So am I the asshole for not wanting to do this? Am I the asshole for telling my child's mother I can parent however I want and my girlfriend can get whatever tattoo she wants? Disclaimer, this is not my story. I, 35 male, have an 11-year-old daughter with my ex-wife, Carrie, 36 female. Me and Carrie met senior year of high school, dated throughout college, and had our daughter whenever she was in law school. At the beginning, it was great, but after Carrie joined a firm, everything went to shit. I accepted her job would require long hours, but it just got worse. I was doing almost all the baby work. She would just come home late, eat, watch some TV, and go to bed. She wouldn't show me any affection most nights. I felt like a live-in nanny, and I was working full-time too. I tried communicating only to get lawyer talk back. All we could talk about was her work and the baby, nothing about us or my job or my life. I filed for divorce 4 years ago. Carrie went off about it whenever I informed her. She wanted to try therapy, something that I had suggested for years. She was mostly upset about losing her childcare arrangement and personal chef. I've been dating Lauren, 28 female, for 2.5 years. She and my daughter are very close. Lauren has a couple of tattoos and wants to get one of me and my daughter on her arm sleeve. We've been talking about marriage and she is free to do whatever she wants with her body. I asked my daughter if she was okay with it and she loved the idea. Lauren and her are working on the design together and it's bonding them more. My ex-wife found out and was very mad. She had an issue with how I'm raising my daughter and how my girlfriend is promoting tattoos. She also said I don't care about my daughter because I don't help her study, which isn't true. We do her homework quickly so we can hang out and enjoy life, not shove our faces in books. Her grades are still great, just not all A's. I told Carrie she's free to raise our daughter however she wants to at her place. But our house is about being a family and not being a cold robot. Maybe she should look in the mirror and ask our daughter why she likes her stepmom so much. I'm not going to turn our daughter cold and Lauren can get whatever tattoo she wants. She called me an asshole and threatened to contact my attorney. Am I the asshole for ordering takeout after my husband tricked me to cook for his kids? Disclaimer, this is not my story. For context, I, female 35, have been married to my husband, male 37, for 6 months. He has 2 children from 2 different uninvolved mothers and they live with us full time. The kids are 7 and 10 years old. I work long hours and it's a demanding job time-wise. My husband thinks that just because I work from home that I can pause whenever, but it's untrue. He always asks me to do things for the kids or him during work hours, but I told him I'm working and unavailable during those hours and that the kids are his responsibility until I'm done. Yesterday, he told me he wanted to go attend a friend's engagement dinner and asked me if I could take time off work to make the kids dinner. I told him absolutely not and instead that he can cook for them or order takeout. He said he had no time to cook and the takeout was off the table since he doesn't want them to eat fast food. He later said fine and that he was going to cook dinner then go to the party. 2 hours later, the kids came in and said they were hungry. I was confused. I asked if their dad cooked them dinner and they said he didn't. He actually told them to come ask me to cook for them at exactly 7 p.m. I was so pissed to find myself in this situation. I took a few minutes off the meeting and ordered takeout from the nearby restaurant and fed the kids and had them watch TV then go to sleep. He came home at 11 p.m. and went off on me after he discovered that I didn't cook like he was counting on me to do. Not only that, but he yelled about feeding the kids takeout. I argued back saying I had no choice after he basically tricked me into cooking for them knowing I was busy, so I ordered food and made sure the kids were fed while I focused on work. He ranted about how I care more about work than my stepchildren and called me selfish, then went upstairs and refused to talk to me. He's still sulking about it today and says that I need to get my priorities in order because they're messed up.